the first Sabbath or the first day of the week? The third step of analysis. Can the same identical word in the same grammatical form, in the same context, be translated differently? In this video I will analyze Myles Ketelsen's following claim.
So Luther's 1545 translation picks up on the Greek grammar and the fact that the word for Sabbath and dawn of the first day of the week, like you see in the ESV, are the exact same word. You can see the Greek, the literal rendering of it out, and then how the ESV in this case renders it. Same identical word for both. Same identical word for Sabbath is used twice in the sentence in the same context using the same grammar. It is arbitrary to then translate the first instance as Sabbath and the second one as first day of the week.
In essence, Myles says that when translators translate the second word Sabbathon in Matthew 28:1 as week, they do it arbitrarily without having reason for doing so. Is it true? Now I will give example in which the same Hebrew word Shabbat, Sabbath, in the same form and in the same context must be translated differently. Let's see Leviticus chapter 23 verses 15-16. First, we will read the verse 15. And ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that ye brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Here we have the first word Shabbat, signifying the 15th day of Aviv, the ceremonial Sabbath. This word is singular with the definite article. The second one is in plural and signifies 7 weeks from the ceremonial Sabbath. Although the King James Version translated it as Sabbaths, the Septuagint rendered it as hebdomadas, weeks. Ancient Jewish translators of the Old Testament into Greek understood that the Hebrew word Shabbat had the second meaning week. Let's now read the verse 16. Even unto the morrow after the 7th Sabbath shall ye number 50 days, and ye shall offer a new meat offering unto the Lord. Here we have the third word Shabbat, which is in singular with the definite article, the same as the first one, but here it signifies the 7th week, and it is rendered in the Septuagint as hebdomados, week. Let's put both verses on the same slide. And ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath a Shabbat, from the day that he brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 weeks, Shabbatot, shall be complete. Even unto the morrow after the 7th week, a Shabbat, shall ye number 50 days, and ye shall offer a new meat offering unto the Lord. Now it is clearly seen that the same Hebrew word Shabbat, the Sabbath, in the same form, in the same context, has 2 different meanings. The first, the Sabbath, refers to the 15th day of Aviv, ceremonial Sabbath, and the second, the Sabbath, refers to the 7th week. Myles may argue that the Jews counted not the weeks, but the weekly Sabbaths. But such way of counting would not work in some years, because they were commanded by God to count exactly 50 days. If we will count only weekly Sabbaths in some years, it is impossible to have all 50 days, because the first ceremonial Sabbath of the Feast of Unleavened Bread can occur on any day of the week. So, if it doesn't occur in the very beginning of the first week, we will have less than 50 days. From the Leviticus 23:15-16, it is clear that the 50th day was the next one after the last week. If we should understand the third word as Shabbat as the Sabbath instead of the week, we have a problem. The next day after it should be 50th day, but because of the shifting ceremonial Sabbath, we will not have 50 days. The only solution of this problem is to accept the idea that the third word, Shabbat, has the meaning week, especially since the Greek Septuagint and the Latin Vulgate both render it as the week. So Leviticus 23:15-16 stands as an example of the place where the semi-identical word for Sabbath is used twice in the same grammatical form, in the same context, in two different meanings, Sabbath and week. That's why it is not arbitrary to translate it in two different ways. There is sound reason for doing so. In the next video, I will give further proof that the Hebrew word Shabbat has the meaning week.